Hey friends, it's Rosalind. Welcome back to our gardens and our tiny farm. Over the past few weeks, we have been talking about growing flowers the simple, old fashioned way. If you want to grow tons of flowers without spending money on grow lights or fancy seed starting setups, this is for you. Today, we're going to winter sow a whole bunch of flower seeds using simple milk or water jugs and letting nature do the work. Winter sowing is hands down my favorite method because it's easy, affordable, and it produces incredibly strong plants. Winter sowing mimics nature, so imagine how a plant produces seeds in fall. It drops its seeds down into the soil, and those seeds just sit there. They experience cold, snow, rain, and freeze thaw cycles, which help the seeds germinate exactly when they're supposed to. No grow lights, no heating mats, no hardening off. Nature handles it all. And by planting into clear jugs or containers, we have more control over the seeds. We don't need to worry about them being washed away in rain or having a critter come along and eat the seeds or seedlings because the seeds are safely tucked into those little jug greenhouses. This setup costs almost nothing. I reuse milk jugs, but you can use any kind of clear containers that you have on hand. And we're using basic potting soil. All right, friends, today is a big day. It's a day that I look forward to all winter long, and that is getting a whole bunch of cut flowers started from seed using the winter sowing method. And these flowers will all be for the Cut Flower Garden 2026. And we're also going to get just a couple of herbs and vegetables started from seed today. But I hope that when you walk away today, because there's always so many questions surrounding growing seeds using the winter sowing method, I hope you walk away today feeling confident in growing your own seeds this way and just having some of those questions answered. So instead of popping those seed packets into the freezer, like some of them suggest on the back, we are simply going to plant them into our milk jugs. We have drain holes in the bottom, and then we cut around the center, leaving a hinge on the back. So we can get about 3 inches of potting soil in the bottom and leave about 3 to 4 inches of headspace in the top for our seedlings to grow in. And after we have this all closed up, we are going to set these jugs planted up with seeds out into the snow in the frigid cold, and they are going to get the cold stratification that they need. In just a second, we're going to be looking at all of the seeds that we're planting today, and I had shared some of these in a previous video, like a couple weeks ago, but I thought we would just look at some of those as well as the ones that I have added since then. I also do have more seeds on order. I have some snapdragons and other fun things to get planted this way, so I'll have to do that later once those seeds arrive. Another reason that I prefer growing my seeds in milk jugs is like we could just set or throw those seeds out on top of the garden soil, but this keeps them in a designated spot where they can grow protected at like the jugs will act as a little greenhouse. The seeds will start sprouting earlier, but it will also protect the seeds from little critters like birds or mice or voles, which really enjoy eating those seeds. And it also keeps them from washing away in the rain or the snow. It will just keep them all in one spot in these jugs. All right, a peek at some of the flowers that we're going to be planting using the winter sowing method. The first one is stock. Isn't that color so pretty? This one is called Vintage Brown, and then we also have a pastel mix. And what you want to look for on a seed packet to see if it's great to be planting in the middle of the winter using the winter sowing method. So this one says stock is a cool weather crop. It's perfect to get started using the winter sowing method. It enjoys growing in the cooler weather of spring. The next one that we are going to be starting is Fancy Smoky Eyes Larkspur. I have never grown this color before, but it's so pretty. So it does say on the back, chill seed for 7 days before planting. And another thing that it says is to chill the seed to improve germination and that it grows best in soil below 55 degrees Fahrenheit. perfect one to get started using the winter sowing method. Corn cockle is one that says it performs best in areas with cool summers, which means it's a great one to get started using the winter sowing method. And this one is Blossom Pearl, such a pretty soft color. Now, this is one that I have never grown using the winter sowing method, so you're going to get to experiment along with me. It's straw flower, and this one is Silvery Rose Straw Flower. It does, on the back of this one, it says to provide temperatures of 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, but I have seen others grow this using the winter sowing method, so we're going to experiment with it together. The next one is a tender perennial, and it is white feverfew, tetra white feverfew. But it does say sow the seeds as soon as your soil can be worked, which again means it's a great one to get started using the winter sowing method because it benefits from that cold stratification. Canterbury Bells is one that I have started before using the winter sowing method. I had very good results with it. Aren't those colors just so pretty? It made the prettiest cut flowers this past summer. And this is considered a biennial. So we're going to get the seeds started using the winter sowing method, and it will just grow its leaves this summer. And then next summer, 2027, it will grow its flowers, which is a great one to get started using the winter sowing method, biennials. Another one that I had very good success with last year was sweet peas. And I do have the seeds soaking right now. So I had them growing. I planted them, I think it was either the last week in January or the first part of February when I planted the sweet pea seeds. And they just started growing about March. They started growing, and then I transplanted them into the garden in April, early April, and they got frosty a couple of times, but they did so well. When the weather started warming in May, those took off, and they were the prettiest flowers. All right, I have a whole bunch of seeds from Dollar Heirloom, and we are going to get all of these started using the winter sowing method as well. If you want seeds for only $1 per packet and their heirloom seeds, highly recommend this company. They have their information at the bottom, dollarheirloom.com. But we are going to get Cottage Pink Dianthus started using the winter sowing method. This is a perennial, which is a great one to get started using the winter sowing method. And we are going to do Tall Double Sweet William. And this is a biennial. Again, a great one to get started using the winter sowing method. Then we have Giant Imperial Larkspur. And we have Rosemary. This likes growing in cool weather. So we're going to try out rosemary using the winter sowing method. Bachelor's buttons. This is a great one to get started using the winter sowing method. It also does well if you just sprinkle it on top of your soil. And then we have a bird and butterfly wildflower mix, which I can see that it has calendula and sunflowers and a couple of other fun things in there. It'll be interesting to see what all comes out of this mix. And then we are going to get two vegetables started that enjoy growing in the cooler weather of spring. One of them is broccoli. This one is purple sprouting. Doesn't that look like so much fun? And Walla Walla onions. I have never planted onions from seed using the winter sowing method. I have done chives before with very good results, so I'm hoping we'll have good results from this one as well. This is a question that a lot of you have had, and that is, what kind of soil should you be using for the winter sowing method? And you don't want to be using a seed starting mix because that dries out so quickly and it's not good for these poor little seeds and seedlings. So I just use an all-purpose potting mix for the flowers. This brand is called Master Garden, and it has slow release fertilizer in it. My preferred one is Miracle Grow potting all-purpose potting mix because it has the least amount of bark. And when I'm planting herbs or vegetables, I like to use this brand. It is an organic, all-natural, all-purpose potting mix, and the brand is Sunshine. It does very well with herbs and vegetables. When we go to plant our seeds into these containers, we will just follow the package directions. Like it says, do not cover as light aids germination. I'm just going to sprinkle it right on top. And I like to do, well, we have more than that in this container, but I like to generally do like around 10 seeds per jug. And that would mean we would have about 10 plants growing in here. Once we have our seeds in there, since we don't have to cover these, we're just going to mist it with some water. We have a tag with the variety written on it, and we're going to set that on the inside, and we're going to close it up and write on the outside of the jug as well as to what variety we have planted in here. For our sweet peas, it says to plant the seeds 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep. Darkness is required for germination. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to plant these seeds about 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep. And I like to do about 3 to 4 jugs of each flower variety. That way we have plenty of cut flowers to plant into the garden in spring. Now we're going to use some duct tape, and we are going to tape up these jugs and set them outside. This is what we got planted so far today. Definitely not anywhere close to being finished because we have all of these seeds to get through. So I will just have to continue working on it over the next 2 weeks or so until we have everything planted. But let's get these jugs set outside. I like to place my jugs in a sunny spot that's protected from strong winds because in winter we really do get a lot of wind here. These jugs will get snow, rain, and sunshine, but they're protected from animals and from the harshest weather. Now comes the easiest part. You don't need to water unless things get extremely dry, and you can check on the jugs every few days or so. In spring, the seedlings will pop up when the timing is perfect. If you want to grow more flowers for less money, winter sowing is one of the best gardening tricks you can learn. Now these jugs will just sit out here until spring. They're going to sit through whatever type of weather that Mother Nature brings. And the only time that I water is, I had shared this when we planted up these poppy containers together, but you can see that these all have condensation gathered up on the inside, which means they have plenty of humidity. It's kind of watering itself. So those jugs do not need to be watered. But if we swing over here, now these are the jugs that we just planted today, but see how dry these kind of look? So that is when we will know that our soil is obviously not very well hydrated. So we'll just come in here with our spray bottle and spray the soil. That'll moisten everything again. But as winter continues, we are just going to see how everything is germinating, especially once we are closer to spring. And later in spring, once it's time to get these planted into the garden, we'll plant them out into the garden together and just see which varieties have done best using the winter sowing method. Thank you for doing a little bit of gardening with me today, friends, in the middle of winter. I hope it's been helpful to you, and I will see you right back here real soon. Bye.